Hey, before we get started, let's talk a little bit about the ear, what we're gonna see and come up against. It has a lot of soft edges, you guys, so a lot of areas where it goes from light to dark really slowly. So watch out for that and use your blending stick to draw. Look how light. So sometimes just a dirty blending stick can be the best drawing tool, especially early on when you're wanting to keep things light. The top of the ear is level with the corner of the eye, and the bottom level with the nose if you're placing it on a head, which we're not right now, but when the time comes. Make sure that you are recognizing all the different values that you can see in the ear. That's one key to realistic drawing, is making sure that you have recorded each area of value correctly. And it does take some time. Well, for me it does. Some people can go a lot faster. For me, it takes a lot of time to build up that kind of value variety. All right, I'm gonna start like I always start, Pinky. We're gonna do what we do every day, which is draw an anchor line on the reference, and then we're gonna draw an anchor line on our paper so that we have a coordinating system and we can chunk what is essentially a really complicated shape into 4 smaller, less complicated shapes. And this tends to make things so much easier, especially for beginners and for me. So that is where I start most of the time. I'm going to use my blending stick since I talked about what a good underdrawing tool it is. I'm just going to keep proving that to you and show you that, wow, it just gives me such a light line, and you will watch it just fade into the drawing. I don't ever have to erase it. So I'm convinced it's kind of the way to go for that anchor line. Gonna start, I'm gonna want to start at the top and make almost a letter C. So I'm gonna start in this upper left, and that's the shape I want to get. Is it trails through kind of the southwestern area and makes a triangle, like a little slice of pizza there. And then the earlobe comes down a little further in my southeast quadrant there, and then curls up slightly. I'm not really concerned about the specific shape right away. I can manipulate the shape a little bit more, but I do want to get the big pieces under control. So each quadrant offers different shapes and lengths and things like that, and I'm paying attention to those. I'm just gonna get this inner ridge started and pay attention to these little dark areas. See that hook right there? I want to make sure I follow it from this quadrant all the way around. I'm also holding my pencil near the back. I'm not choked up on the front of it. I'm not pressing. This whole stage is still underdrawing, so I always tell my students underdrawing is like underwear. We really appreciate it, but we're not going to show it off. We are just going to cover it up. This like little boot shape of shadow, like a little stocking, and then it curls around. And that sounds so strange to say out loud, but that is what makes sense to me in my mind. It's my inner monologue. It's just sounds funny saying it out loud, but it does. It helps me to recognize, okay, I need to make that kind of boot shape, that sock right here. And then it doesn't feel as elusive. Like, oh, that's such a weird shape. I don't think I can get that shape. Well, really, it's just a sock. It's just a boot. So I know it has to be somewhere in there, and it's one of my dark values, so I need to map it in early and use it as a landmark. All right, there's another shape right here in the crosshair. It looks like like a Z? I don't know, a curve, maybe like an anchor. It has this kind of like curve at the end of it. I don't know. It also looks kind of like a sandwich to me, like dark and then light and then dark again, like an Oreo. So I'm gonna call that my Oreo section. I'm giving myself landmarks that make sense to me in my mind so that when I'm talking to myself in my mind, I can say those things and know where to go. Those are my landmarks. If I don't know all the specific little pieces of the ear, what each little crevice is called, but if I nickname it, I can find my way around really easily. So I am trying to see where I'm at on the value scale. I should stay somewhere in the middle early on. I don't want to commit to my darks because I want to be really, really sure it's right. So draw light until it's right. It's kind of our mantra in drawing class. So I'm going to skip a little section. So I've got my top, need my middle. So I'm going to skip a section that's just about as wide as the top section that I just did. And this one's a little skinnier. And then it goes down to that like teardrop. All right, so I'm just gonna block it in. Okay, just check in. Yep, curls down like that. And then a little U, a little letter U. My brain knows the letter U. It doesn't necessarily know this ear very well. I just met it, so I'm getting to know it. Okay. Light, dark. Just seeing if I've recorded the basic pattern I see. I know it's not perfect. I've got a spoiler alert. It's probably not going to be perfect, but we're trying to get really, really close. I feel pretty good about some of the 6B that I've laid down. I want to go ahead and blend what I have, because what happens is you put all this dark value down and you don't really know how much you have until you spread it out and fill in the gaps. Because if you're using a 6B or an 8B, 9B, anything that's really soft graphite, there's a good chance that you have more graphite on there than you think. So lay a little down and then spread it out, fill in those gaps, and make sure you don't have a lot of directional line. I just was checking my value scale, seeing how dark this is going to be. I can always wipe it away a little bit with tissue and blending stick, but I don't want to overcommit and have it go too dark too fast. Okay, now I'm going to pay attention to my light areas. You see this like wiggly letter Y? It's like it goes all the way through the ear. Then we have a fade from this ridge down. That's a really soft edge. Wow, probably have to do that with tissue, but I'll try it out. Let's see if we can stretch out some of this graphite to make that soft edge. Yeah, it's working. I'm always tempted to use my blending stick a lot more than I should. I do try to just save it for small areas and use my tissue for the large areas, but sometimes I just get sucked in and I just forget I'm even using it and just keep drawing. I'm seeing kind of like a little X right there, so I recorded that and made it a little landmark where that ear looks like it has a pinch. Okay, I got that. All right, we probably need to go ahead and get the environment around it. I'm guessing hair. So I'm gonna lay down a nice solid mid-tone layer of value. It's gonna be darker than that eventually, but not yet. Wow, that was fast. Movie magic. Okay, there's also a little shadow under this earlobe. It looks like a Nike swoosh to me. So I think if I make it look like that, or like a hockey stick, then I can do that. Now I have a big area to shade. I'm not gonna use my blending stick because I remembered that anything smaller than a quarter, I can use the blending stick. Anything bigger than a quarter, I really need to reach for this tissue. And there's so much soft value change that this little tissue paper, this piece of toilet paper, it's just, I think it's just regular old toilet paper. So nothing special about it, but the dirtier it gets, for me, I think the more useful it becomes, because I can start using it to apply really soft value in really soft areas. I've also seen people use like graphite that's, I guess, powder form, and they kind of brush on graphite. I think that would be similar to what I'm doing here. I'm just gonna like give it a little dusting. So you can see that I just dusted right over the whole ear. I mean, it's barely a value change, but it's there. I can still identify it. So these are soft edges where the value change is so subtle that it's just hard to tell where one begins and the other ends. And if you don't capture those, it's just gonna make the ear look flat, and it has a lot of depth to it. So we have to record both edges. We have to record sharp edges like I'm doing here on this ridge where it meets the hair, nice crisp edge, and we have to record the soft edges because there's plenty of those. Recording both creates that illusion. If you neglect one or the other, it causes some issues in your drawings. If you're finding that your drawings look out of focus or hazy, there's a great chance that you have ignored or wiped away some of the sharper edges that you may have already identified and may have had at one point, but you've lost them. So I lost my sharp edge around this ear, so now I'm going back and refining it. So I'm adding another layer of graphite. I'm keeping that area where those values meet, the dark meets the light, really sharp as a knife. All right, I need to blend what I have to see how dark it's gonna make it. Also, when you are using the tissue, there's a reason it gets dirty. It's because you wipe off some of the graphite. So be careful that you realize that every time you blend, you also might wipe away some of it, which is gonna lead me to adding another layer to it. And by the end, your last layer, like your darkest layer, you're just gonna basically leave it alone or blend it really lightly. Don't be too aggressive in how you blend because you'll wipe too much away. And you'll just lose some of your dark contrast and won't have that pop like you wanted it to have, or maybe like you did have. I'm noticing there's a little bit of the neck here and my shadow's starting to creep down. And what I don't notice does hurt my drawings, because if I don't notice it, I'm not going to record it. I have to notice every little thing and record it if you're drawing in a realistic way. So now I'm going to use my eraser to draw some of my highlights. Now that I have a nice little dusting of graphite, I have something to work against, and so I can see where my eraser is actually leaving a trail. See that? It's also leaving a little bit of eraser, but that's okay. I like using a cap eraser for these little areas because I use it as a drawing tool. I think that surprises some people, that I like a cap eraser. I don't care to use this like kneaded eraser and like make it come to a point, but I feel like maybe I always have a cap eraser handy. And maybe it's just out of necessity. Like I'm gonna have a cap eraser with me. Sometimes I don't have a kneaded eraser with me, or maybe the kneaded eraser is just, covered in stuff. One time I had a sharpener in my pencil box and it broke open and all my pencil shavings were all stuck in my eraser. It was a mess. So, old reliable cap eraser. Gonna give it one more dusting. Okay, there's another sharp edge, and I want to go over my darks again before I lose them. I've gone over them with tissue a couple times, and you can see how hazy they're looking. I've lifted away some of their intensity, so I'm going to reestablish them just by adding another layer. I really do work in layers a lot. I find it safe and manageable. Got to get this little anchor, little scoop right there. It kind of wants to connect to that part of the Y. I might have to shift that little piece. If I've drawn light enough, moving something or adjusting something is so easy. But if I've drawn dark and grinded my graphite into my paper, it's impossible. I will have scarred it. That's one thing I've just learned from terrible, experience, is just keep it light, and it erases so easily. And then any little mistake is just that. It's just a little mistake. It doesn't have to derail you. You just adjust a little bit. I'm just gonna move that over some. It's something I didn't notice before, but I'm noticing it now, and it's not too late. I just change gears a little bit and move it. Okay, this little spot. I want to keep that edge crisp. That's why I got my blending stick, because I don't want to accidentally wipe graphite onto the ridge of the ear. I want to keep that little sharp area crisp. All right, blend this little piece and add some graphite there. Another layer for this bottom of the Oreo cookie or the ice cream sandwich, whatever you want to say. Whatever makes sense in your mind for areas like this. Even if you were drawing fabric, a material, clothing with lots of folds. I've seen a lot of books say this too. Find letters, shapes that make sense in your mind that you can identify, and then work your way around them as landmarks. It's a time-tested technique. This is not something I created. I create little nicknames for things that make sense to me in my mind, but it may not make sense in your mind. You just you nickname parts all on your own, little shadows, and areas like that. I see about 3 values in this earlobe. Maybe 4. I can maybe stretch it to 4. So maybe 9, 7. So I'm looking at my value scale, and I'm identifying values, like how many times does it change? Because I want this earlobe to look like it turns a corner, like it wraps around the shape. And soft edges turn a shape. Hard edges abruptly, cut it off, make it flat. Just like the shadow on a cheek. You turn, that edge of the face. All right, sweep over that. It's pretty dark. I'll go back though. It's all gonna have to go darker. I'm still holding back. I'm still working. I'm kind of moving down my value scale, but I'm still staying kind of in the mid-tone. Work it that way up there. All right. Oh, let's talk about my kneaded eraser. I feel like I'm gonna use it a little bit. And I just, brush it off. It only really takes a touch from the eraser to lift the graphite off. If the graphite's been applied with a tissue, it comes up so easy. Just making contact will do it. I think I gotta darken that up a little bit. Count my values. How many times does it change from here to there? What little shapes do I see? Do I see a little letter? Yes, I see a little V. I see a little wishbone shape here. Almost looks like a K, an X. See that right there? That's what I'm seeing. I will destroy a reference. I won't mean to, but I do pick it apart. Because to notice everything, sometimes I just have to physically draw on it and say, what is here? What is tricking me? Why is my brain telling me to draw something else that's not there? Because when I look away, I forget. So working with a reference really close to me helps me a lot. See, just a little touch, and that's all it takes to lift that up. It's a little darker than that. I'd say that's a step down. I've got them the same exact value. So I'm going to just dust over this part. I'm just stretching the top part and the bottom part over, like a little veil of graphite over that one, just to darken it up. Okay, make that, identify that little shape a little clearer. I've hinted at the shape, but I haven't invested time in refining the shape. All right, another layer of graphite. I think this is like my third layer, but you guys may be surprised by that. I'm not surprised. I will layer and layer and layer until my paper is glossy with graphite. And then I will wish that I had used charcoal so that I could make it darker. That's usually how it is. All right. I need to sharpen this edge up again. I'm gonna add another layer of graphite. I'm squinting at my reference. I'm squinting at my drawing. I'm seeing, do they match? Where do they look alike? Where do they not look alike? What else do I need to add? Okay, some of this shape, I feel like I can make a few little adjustments here and there. I am still refining. That's basically what I call this stage, where the shapes are there, my landmarks are there. I can compare what I have in my reference with what I've been drawing and go back and forth and make some pretty solid decisions about where I want to go next. So I'm just looking back and forth. Anytime you see me like kind of pause with my pencil, I'm usually squinting at my image, my reference image, and I'm squinting at my drawing, trying to think, okay, what stands out more on my reference than in my drawing? Well, this little spot needs another layer. It's very dark, it's deep in the ear. So I'm gonna give it a little bit more. I think that I need to, work on the interior, maybe a little bit more highlights in here, make sure I've drawn all these little spaces, and I'm just refining. If I can squint it away, that's what I'll usually phrase it as. If I can squint it away in my reference, then it's not very important, and I shouldn't spend a lot of time on it early on. But the later in the drawing I get, the more I open my eyes. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's how I describe it. I kind of blur out as much as I can. And if you can't squint it away, if you can't blur it away, then it's really important and you probably need to draw it or at least make plans to put it in there. But if you can squint it away, you can save it for later. It's detail. It's dessert. So details are dessert. You can save it for the refining time of your drawing and kind of map it out there. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm putting in some details that I really probably just didn't see because I was squinting so much. And now I'm opening my eyes and I can see them. And I hope this has helped you guys. I always found it really helpful to watch people draw, maybe who are a little more advanced than I was, especially in college. If my professors and my teachers in drawing would draw something out, it was really helpful to me because it's almost like I took their confidence on like a cloak, like, oh, wow. They just, drew it out so quickly and it looked so easy. And I just kind of wore that for a little bit. And it's not a magical thing. It does inspire a little bit more confidence when you are watching someone do a skill that you want to learn. I just think it's great that there are channels like this out here where we can learn the skills that we desire to learn. I'm just really thankful for that. And if you're thankful for that too, please share this video with someone you think would appreciate it. And I hope that it helps them get a little bit closer to their goals as well, because I really enjoy drawing these and they help my students, and I hope they can help as many people learn how to draw and be less frustrated while they draw as possible. All right, we're gonna finish this one up. I'm gonna not hold back. So here I go. I'm really putting a lot of pressure, although I'm holding my pencil on its side where I can get a lot of graphite contact. So it's hard to tell in the video, but the wood of the pencil is not quite touching, but I am using a really thick pencil stroke here because I've really worn it down. Now I'm gonna flip that pencil over and get the point of my pencil and work on that edge, but I'm gonna make sure that it's an edge. It's not a big hard outline. So what starts off as a hard outline, see this? I'm not gonna leave it there. Always give it some blending so that it turns it into an edge and not a line. Lines are for cartoons. They're, they're useful and flat. And we want this ear to look, look, it has some depth. So I'm doing the final stages of this ear. I'm nicknamed this stage kind of the punctuations. Like, where do I need to just pop in those dark darks where I've been holding back in reserve kind of my ammunition. This 6B packs a punch. Where does it need more contrast, more emphasis? Put those pops of dark in there now. And where we say, draw light till it's right. Well, it's right. So we've got to commit now. We have to walk down the aisle. We have to marry this drawing now. There's no going back. We've put this effort into it. Now, if we don't commit, then it's not going to be as good as it could be. So we really do have to eventually commit and map in those darks, put that final layer on there, and don't wipe it off. Just lay it down so it can give it the contrast it needs. And that is a really rewarding, I think, a really rewarding little step and fun. It's starting to really shape up. Pretty happy with it. Although in portraits, we rarely draw this much of the ear. You usually see it from a front view, but to learn, I like to draw it from this angle. If you would like to see me draw an ear from another angle and do another video on the ear, then please write that in the comments below and let me know that that's something you want to see. I will definitely try to make that happen. So far, we've drawn the eyes. This is only the second facial feature that I've put on here that we learn in class, but I'll go on to do nose, mouth with teeth, probably some hair tutorials or instructions on the hair. That's kind of where I'm headed. That's what we do in class. When we start our portrait unit, we have to go through all of those things before we tackle our self-portraits. I think the ear's pretty forgiving though. I feel like you could mess up the ear a little bit and get away with it. Not to encourage you to do subpar work, but I mean, how many people do you recognize from their ears? I don't think I would recognize very many if I just saw a picture of their ears and you're like, who is this? I don't know. The eyes are way less forgiving. The nose, not forgiving at all. And when I say not forgiving, it shows mistakes and you can't halfway do it. It has to be perfect. But the ear, it's kind of fun. You can get away with a little more freedom in messing up a little bit. One last go around. I'm trying to blend what I have and not wipe it away. Just gonna give it little touches. I don't want to lose my highlights either. You guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope that this gave you some more confidence in drawing the ear. If you enjoy these tutorials, please subscribe so that anytime I put out a new video, you're the first to see it. And I hope you just have a blessed day and happy drawing.